Screencast 25, Getting the Values of an AX Enum into a Report. I made a fun report, and it's called this. It's in my samples library. It's Demo Retrieve AX Enum. Let's open it up. I'll go ahead and just preview it for you now, because it'll make the most sense once you see it. It is called Auto Design Ledger Posting Type. And the ledger posting type is the name of an AX Enum. And you can see in this report, there are three columns: symbol, int value, and label, right? And you can see the values coming all the way down. There are 3 pages, so apparently this is a very, very large enum with a lot of values. Okay, so that's the report. It's very simple. How did I get the enum? Well, I certainly didn't type it all in. Let's take a look. Now there's this data region, and where does it get its data? Well, this property set it comes from this data set called AX Enum. And if we look in the data sets, we'll see there's a data set. And hey, look, it's business logic. That means C# code. Okay? And specifically, it's calling this method called getLedgerPostingTypeEnum, creatively named, which is a data method, obviously, in this report model. And there it is. This data method doesn't do much other than call a static method in my sample code report library.sampleCode class called getAXEnum, and there you see I pass in a parameter of ledger posting type as the name. Okay, so this specific report will always fetch ledger posting type, but my method, the static method I implemented, can retrieve any one of them. And later on, we'll show you a report where the end user, the viewer of the report, can type in the name of the enum, and the report will show whichever enum he wants. So let's take a look at getAXEnum. We'll right-click and go to definition, and it is implemented in my sample code report library in the samplecode.cs file. I'm going to step through what this thing does. So first, it returns a data table, of course, and then it checks to see if the enum name that's passed in is null. If it is, then a system.argumentNull exception is thrown. The next line, we create a new data table, DT, and we add the columns. Symbol is going to store strings. Int value will store ints. Labels will store strings. Okay? So the data table schema is now defined. Then we get our AX session. You've seen this before in previous screencasts. We call sessionManager.getSession. Now, from the session, we're going to go get the enum's ID, and we do that by calling a static class method on the global class. The name of the method is enumName2ID, and we pass in the enum name. Then from that ID, we want to retrieve the object. So we do ax.createExaptaObject, and we say dict enum, and we convert this enum ID to a string and pass that in. Okay, so we'll get the value back, the object, the enum object. Once we have that object, we can find how many values are in it. Okay, so now we are ready to populate the data table. We'll do dt.beginLoadData, and we always do this when we have a data table because it's more efficient to start. It sort of indicates that, hey, I'm going to do a whole bunch of bulk insertions. Don't do any checking. The value count is whatever it is. We're going to loop through the range of it, and we're going to retrieve the symbol, right, from the enum object, and we're indexed on that this loop variable I. And the symbol's length is greater than 0. We'll get the int value by calling this symbol to value method, and we'll get the label by calling value to label method. Right, pretty straightforward. And then we'll add the symbol, the int value, and the label to the rows of the data table. Finally, we'll say endLoadData, and then we'll return the data table. It's very simple. I've cleaned this up. This is a modified version of what you'll see in the shared components SRS report library, and I've just sort of made it a bit simpler to see, but essentially it's doing the same thing. Okay? And it's all contained in this one function. So you're seeing another case. The first time, you're seeing another case of us retrieving data about something from AX without going to a query. Right? The first thing I showed you several screencasts ago was returning an AX label. So we passed in the label ID and we got a string back. And this time we're passing an enum name and getting a data table of all the values back. Okay? So that's how we built this report. So let's go ahead and preview it again. And I'll show you my previous tip, new vertical tab group. So now we can see the report and the report model at the same time. Let me minimize, close this a bit. A lot of values. So I'm going to use this as an opportunity to teach you a little bit more about auto designs, which is, first of all, notice that int value is in the middle, and you can clearly see it's sorted by int value. And that's just, I guess, the native way the data comes back. What if we want to sort by the symbol name? Well, this is interesting. Let's try. How do you think we would do it? In the last screencast, I showed you groupings, right? And what happens? Can I drag symbol to sorting? I can. And no symbol is still there in the data, right? It didn't disappear, it didn't move, unlike when I dragged things into the groupings node. So it's sorting by symbol. Let's go ahead and just click anywhere here. There you go. The first symbol is now allocation, then bank, then cash discount, then closing. And you can see the int values are now not in the previous order. And of course, I can remove this by right-clicking and hitting delete. And let's sort by label. Click there, and the preview gets updated. Now, of course, there's an empty label for none, so that's going to show. There's allocation, balance, bank, cash discount, etc. Right? So we can sort that way. Let's remove label, right-click and delete. We'll go back to sorting by the symbol. I'll show you one more trick here, right? Which is obviously this is sorting from, the beginning of the alphabet to the end. What if I wanted to invert it? Well, I'll click on this value, on the node under the sorting node, and you can see I can do sort order, ascending, descending. So obviously I can descend, set the sorter descending, and then click here, and then you'll see, now year result is the last, and then vend, and then etc., sales postage. Okay, so we've shown you a little bit about how to do some sorting in these reports. And I'm going to just go ahead and delete this because I'll keep it in its natural order. Okay, and let's review. I showed you how to call a data method that calls back into the AX session, that retrieves the label, the int value and symbol for all the values in an AX enum. And I know it seems a bit odd that I made a report that shows you an AX enum. Maybe it's useful in some sort of debugging sense, but this technique about creating a data set is going to be very critical later on, because that is really how we're going to go and make parameters that have enums as their values. This is exactly what you'll do. You'll have to create a data set with the enum data and put that into a parameter, right? I'll show you that in later screencasts. I'm not sure when I'm going to do it. We have still few more sessions to go on some other topics here, but that's the ultimate purpose of showing you this report, is to get the enums into a parameter. Okay, see you next screencast.